So there's been a lot happening in the last few days. The big news was Carrefour's sale of its stores in Thailand. Now, when Carrefour put its Thai network up for sale initially back in July, it also put its stores in Malaysia and Singapore on the block. Industry estimates at the time were that the sale would generate about $1 billion. So it was quite a shock when the sale of the Thai stores went through for $1.2 billion. So it completely exceeded this estimate. Just with the sales of the Thai stores. Now, Thailand was around 2/3 of the estimated price, so people were expecting it to make in the region of $600 to $650 million. Clearly, it broke this estimate by quite some distance. So then maybe the expectations were for the sales of the stores in Malaysia and Singapore also to achieve double the expectations. So what's happened now is that Carrefour has actually called off the sales of its stores in these two markets, saying that the bids that it received weren't attractive enough. Carrefour has now decided to hang on to its stores in Singapore and Malaysia for the moment, saying that growth markets, emerging markets, are going to drive growth for the company in the future, and that it's decided that it will be more profitable to try and increase its own sales in these markets rather than just sell the assets. So looking more closely at the Thailand deal, Big C, which is an affiliate of French group Casino, has paid a lot of money for, on the face of it, maybe not all that big a gain. Tesco remains the undisputed leader of the hypermarkets channel. And although Big C has, of course, increased its share because of the Carrefour acquisition, it hasn't moved up the rankings particularly. What it does gain is greater buying power, greater coverage. There's quite a good fit with the stores in terms of urban versus suburban stores between the two groups. And the other issue is that Casino, Big C, generally gets better sales per store from its stores. And if it can bring the Carrefour stores up to this level, it should be able to make a good step up within the market. But in terms of actually changing really the competitive environment, it's not going to have a big immediate effect. There was only one company that had expressed an interest in all the stores in Thailand, Malaysia and Singapore, and that was Tesco. Ironically, Tesco's presence in the bidding may partly be responsible for pushing the price up. It's ironic because obviously Tesco is a big competitor of Carrefour, and here it is perhaps helping Carrefour to get a really, really good price for its stores in Thailand. I'm very surprised actually that there hasn't been a stronger level of interest in the Malaysian assets, particularly from Tesco, because buying Carrefour's share in Malaysia would help Tesco to actually challenge Dairy Farm International within the market. It would make a really big difference. Again, in Malaysia, we have AEON, which is present in supermarkets. It's not particularly big in the market, but AEON currently is much too dependent on the Japanese market, which is obviously declining sales, very big pressures there. So AEON has been saying that it's going to look further around emerging markets, try and increase its presence in these markets. So the fact that it's in Malaysia and that Carrefour had a sort of pretty substantial share, about 7% share, going in Malaysia, I'm very surprised that there wasn't stronger bidding between AEON, between Tesco, for this particular share. In terms of Casino going for the other Carrefour operations in Malaysia and Singapore, it's not present there at the moment. Casino is quite a scattered retailer, so unless it was going to decide to make a real concerted push into the Asia-Pacific market, I'm not sure that it would be a natural purchaser of these shares. Carrefour has got a strategy of exiting markets where it doesn't have a chance to become one of the clear market leaders. Now, both Malaysia and Singapore and Thailand were exact examples of this market. The idea for Carrefour was then to invest proceeds of the sale in its core Western markets, where it's been struggling in a lot of its key markets, even France, its domestic market. So to support its core markets, but also to increase its sales in China and Indonesia. Indonesia, again, Carrefour is ranked second there, so it does fit with Carrefour's strategy. It's also worth about 70 billion. So it's a good market. It's got good growth prospects. And it's also, unfortunately, attracting the interest of a lot of other operators. What we've got at the moment in Indonesia is another hypermarket chain is also for sale, the Matahari chain. That's been attracting all sorts of interest. And one of the people which has been expressing an interest has been Wal-Mart. If Wal-Mart then enters Indonesia, Carrefour has got a whole different sort of fight on its hands. Although Carrefour has said that it wants to grow its operations in Singapore and Malaysia now, in fact, I think in the longer term, a divestment is still fairly likely. Clearly, Carrefour is a long, long way off challenging for the leadership. And again, looking at the value of these markets, here we've got Indonesia worth about 70 billion in terms of grocery retail, Malaysia 7 billion, Singapore 4 billion. You know, the numbers just don't add up for Carrefour. So longer term, it may improve its stores, it may make them more attractive a purchase for other retailers. But if it gets a good bid, I think Carrefour would be wise to accept.